I always wanted to serve on a jury.
I'm really super excited to be here, so I really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Creating this whole trial, Daddy.
I want to give a big shout out to the 13th Jury Podcast and Brandi.
Yeah, I applaud you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Every time you run into the farmer, you should reach for it.
And then I just looked to the jury, and it's sort of like, look.
I was in the eye of the storm, and you guys were watching the storm.
Hey, if you're bored of work, come pop in and say, hey, we'll have some coffee.
You are a ray of sunshine, and I love what you've done with your YouTube channel.
Good morning. Good morning, jurors. Hello. Hello. Come in and take your seats. Hello. Hello. It is good to see you all. Bright and early. Okay, well, it's not early, but it's good to see you anyway. Come on in and grab your seats. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. Look, Lindsay Hendricks. Hey, Lindsay Hendricks. Thanks for the shout out last night. And Linda, if Linda's in here, and there were a couple last night. I was working, so I missed the live, but I went back and watched the Karen Reed stream on Surviving the Survivor, and I saw the shout outs, so I appreciate it. Y'all the real MVPs. Good morning. Good morning. Happy... What's today? Happy hump day. Happy hump day. Is it bad that I don't even know? Happy hump day. It is good to see you. Oh, I was just over on Twitter and saw that Murdoch's financial crime sentences are going to run concurrently and not consecutively. This is I haven't even been on, my Twitter has been very limited this morning. So I haven't even seen all of that stuff. So, interesting. I did see the stuff about the lie detector, which, look, here's why this is funny. Lie detectors tests are not admissible in court for a reason, right? They're not admissible in court for a reason. But what's so funny about it is that, and Mandy Matney tweeted this, that, oh, and happy 10-month anniversary. Whoop, whoop. Happy 10 months. Enjoyed every minute of the 10 months. We've enjoyed every minute with you, Anne. So here's what's funny. Anne, this is your 10-month anniversary gift. My gift to you is to point this out. Mandy Matney pointed it out, so I'm not taking credit for it. But, the lie detector tests are not admissible in court for a reason, right? But do you remember how Team Murdoch went nuts when they said that Cousin Eddie failed a polygraph, and they were like it was like the end of the world that Cousin Eddie had failed him a test, and now like Cousin Alec doing the same thing. I mean, is anybody really surprised that Alec lies? No, not a one of us. It's just funny. Bless him. Bless his little heart. We are all so glad you are here. Fur Baby's mom. Lurking. I'm going to tell you right now. I am a teensy bit delirious today. I did not get enough sleep, but I did get out this morning. Me and Lucy went for a nice long walk. So she should be like passed out, a good bit of today because we took a nice long walk and walked to the coffee shop and got a coffee. She also tried to attack a dog who's about 11 times bigger than her, and I think she was just flirting, but she's not very good at it. But that's okay. So she's probably very tired. And then came home and got some stuff. Do we have unmedicated Brandi today? Can you tell? I did just now take my medicine. So in about 20 minutes, I'll be a lot more medicated and perhaps a bit more normal. Not making any promises, Shunk of Bacon. Not making any promises. But, we'll see how it goes. So I did take my medicine about 4 minutes ago. So give me about another 25 minutes and we'll talk. I got kicked to Mr. R. Well, tell him we said hi. Everybody just gets kicked out all the time. I don't know what's going on with that. So I want to show y'all something kind of crazy. I posted this. Let me see. I don't know why it does this. Screen capture. There we go. Oh, I still got my... You can tell what I was working on last night. Episode 7. So I posted this morning. I saw this on Facebook today, this morning. The Maryland Transportation Authority posted this 4 days ago. They posted this 4 days ago. On this day in 1977, the Francis Scott Key Bridge opened to traffic as the final link in I-695, the Baltimore Beltway. Shown here during its construction period that began in 1972, the 1.6-mile Key Bridge crosses over... Look, I get enough hate mail as it is, so I'm not even going to try to attempt to say that, because I'll have all the Baltimore people like, that's not how you say it. So we're just going to say the river. Scholars believe the span crosses within 100 yards of the site where Francis Scott Key witnessed the bombardment of Fort McHenry on the evening of September 12th, 1814. That battle inspired Key to write the words of the Star-Spangled Banner. This was posted 4 days ago. That's kind of crazy, right? Kind of crazy. So that's that. What else we got going on? There's another bridge in Ohio. Another bridge with a problem in Ohio. Apparently it was spontaneous combustion. What? Where at in Ohio? I used to live in Ohio. Crazy stuff happening, huh? Crazy stuff happening. Oh, you want to see something else? Can you hear the AC? I need to turn my mic this way a little bit. Now maybe you can't. Look, summer's coming. Y'all are gonna have to get used to the AC. So something else that's exciting. I hit the charts in Iceland. Shout out Iceland. So that's exciting. I didn't know people in Iceland listened to 13 Juror Podcast, but apparently they do, and they like it. So that's exciting too. AC kicked on and I'm over here with heat on. Yeah, I got sweaty out there walking this morning. It's beautiful though. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, girl, you got to use that AC. Yeah, you remember in the beginning, I was like, I tried to do without it because I was like worried that it was going to, you know, mess with the sound too much. I won't record the podcast because the microphone settings are a lot more, what's the word? Sensitive when I'm recording the podcast. So I'll record in between, like when it goes off during that. But for streaming, yeah, I about made myself sick when I tried to do that. I'd be sitting here like total like menopause hot flash, and it was bad. So now we get AC. What else we got going on? I feel like there's more that we needed to talk about before we got going today. Oh, yes, we love Iceland. Isn't that cool? There was some other stuff, too. Let's see. There was one. Like, there's some that I'm, like, really low on. Like, Canada, I'm kind of low on. China, USA I'm a little bit higher though, which is kind of cool. And Iceland, who knew? Iceland got love for 13, sure. What else do we have going on that we need to talk about before we get started? I started working on episode 7 so that I don't have to like do the whole stay up till 4 a.m. thing. So I only stayed up till like 1 a.m. Trying to do it like in pieces. So I got like the first like 18, 19 minutes recorded. It's so much work. Like the podcast, I'm so proud of it, but it is so much work. But imagine having something that you care so much for, like, because you see so much wrong information being spread. So you spend hours upon hours, weeks upon weeks, months upon months, researching, fact-checking, double-checking, researching again, triple-checking, all to make sure that you're going to be a voice that gives both sides and gives facts and talks about theories and how they relate to the facts, and because you want truth. Imagine spending all that time and then people take personal attacks because you're saying things that they don't want you to say. You're saying things that go against what they want to believe. You're saying things that they don't want other people to hear. It's annoying. Do I go to your, insurance office and at Geico and start screaming that State Farm is better? No! I mind my own damn business, don't I? But, troll's gonna troll. People are funny. What else do we have going on? Isn't there something that we have tomorrow? Let me get my handy dandy calendar out before we get started. I feel like there's something that we have. Oh yeah, there's a hearing tomorrow, right, for Lori Vallow. You have me from Canada. Whatever more could you need? That's all I need. I don't need to be up on the highest charts in Canada because Holly Mack listens, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Christine D. Where'd that just go? It moved. Happy Jurorversary. Happy Jurorversary. Oh, look, I'm singing, and Lucy thinks I'm singing to her. I'm not singing to you. I'm not singing to you. I was singing to Christine D. You can lay back down. Sorry. Happy anniversary. Oh, you're sitting in your backyard watching the Blue Angels fight. I love them. I love them. That's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorites. What are your counts for your podcast views? The views on the YouTube, I think, are almost like 5,000 in the first few days, which is pretty good, and I think Apple is about the same, and I don't know about the others yet. Yeah, I think YouTube and Apple are both, or maybe it was Spotify. I don't know, I have to check. But I think the YouTube one is about 5,000, just for the most recent episode. Not for all of them. Oh, doggone it, I have meetings tomorrow and won't be able to go to the hearing again. They should really check with me first. We'll write them a letter, True Crime Ranch. We'll write them a letter and tell them, you really need to start planning things around True Crime Ranch's schedule. Because it's kind of rude not to. Like, they didn't even check with you, did they? It's rude. We do have, speaking of calendars, we do have other big stuff coming up. You know, we have Chad Daybell. The jury selection starts on Monday. I do have in the Lori Vallow playlist, I have some of the stuff that we've gone over before, and I'll put it on an official letterhead for you. Yes, I will do that for you. I do have some of the previous stuff that we've gone over with Lori Vallow, and we'll probably do, before Dumbbell starts, we'll probably do like a recap thing just to kind of go over, like, because you remember, like, I made a ton of charts and stuff for that, going over the timeline and what happened. So we will probably do a live stream kind of refresher course for that. But yeah, that came up quick, right? I feel like April is next week. Time flies when you're old, I guess. Okay. All right. So yesterday, where we left off was right here. I just paused it and left it. Dumbbell, yes. It's Dumbbell. The storm is coming, y'all. The storm is coming. Ugh. Dog Mom, happy 10-month anniversary. Love you, Brandi, and this community. We love you, Dog Mom. We love you. We love you. We love storm. The storm is coming. Is it? We have that on the hold please. I'm pretty sure 13thjuror.live still has those, right? Don't we have, we got the trial daddies and trial mamas here, but we have the history 101. I stopped making these just because I didn't have much time anymore. But we have from Letitia Stock, we have the Michael, the archangel, and of course we have book bag and boots, and then the who can forget the cash money baby, cash baby, and then all of her stuff. So here's Daybell. So we have she's gonna grab him by the storm. So gross. Ugh, so gross. She's going to grab him by the storm and follow him to the ends of the earth. And then, of course, who can forget the devil taco? She said that she took Satan, folded him like a taco, and sent him to Antarctica, where he is now trapped in a box. Sent that devil taco flying. And then of course, there's loin fire. Just so you know, if you go on 13thjurorpodcast.com, it is a very different website than 13thjurorlive.com. 13thjurorlive.com is like the fun side of everything. It's like the fun side of our live shows and our trials and stuff. 13 Juror Podcast is a little bit more serious. But I like hot dogs over tacos. How do you feel about storms? Yeah, well, you know what? Devil taco. Remember, like, the night that we streamed that too, we were all like, ooh, tacos. I think I ended up door dashing tacos that night because I was like, that sounds really good. And then we got to loin fire and I lost my appetite. Yeah, the hair. Do you know how long it took me to create this hairdo for the Fabio hairdo? I forgot what I even wrote on some of these. And probably what was probably the most uncomfortable testimony from anyone ever. We had to listen to what is basically a dollar store knockoff Harlequin romance book. Chad Daybell describes in grotesque detail his desire and, quote, loin fire for Lori Vallow. I haven't felt this nauseous since I threw up in the tilt-a-whirl in 7th grade. True story. And then, of course, in a move that outraged J.K. Rowling fans nationwide, Chad actually compared himself to a grown-up version of Harry Potter because he felt stuck having to spend time with his family after leaving his murderous mistress. In real life, Chad is more like Draco Malfoy. He thinks that he's more important than he really is, but he's nothing without his 2 cronies. And then, of course, 13th juror, the wedding photos. The gang's all here. I love R.A. with his what's it called? God, unmedicated Brandi can't get her shit together, huh? Yes! Build a devil taco the next time. Yes, devil taco Legos are a must, especially with this trial coming up. Especially with this trial coming up. It's a must. So fun. And by the way, you have like all of our people now like always wanting to build Legos. Everybody's like sharing their Lego stories and their, you know, Lego pictures and stuff that they're doing. Yes, metal detector. Yep. Couldn't think of the word. Unmedicated Brandi is just gone rogue. But you have everybody wanting to do the Legos. Have you heard any update in YouTube world about P. Diddy? No, but I heard Diddy did it is, or Diddy did it, Diddy do it, Diddy. Nope, sure hadn't. All right, let's try this again. Diddy do it? It's on Netflix. Can't speak. I saw that like his drug mule was arrested. And something. Let's look it up. Let's just look it up before we get going on our trial day. And they got his private jet, right? Diddy Done is the new meme. Rapper Diddy's alleged drug mule was arrested at a Miami airport after federal agents raided the singer's Florida and California homes. Brendan Paul, 25, was arrested Monday at Opa-locka Airport after the feds intercepted Diddy's plane. He was booked on 1 count possession of suspected brocaine, and suspected marijuana candy. Diddy was spotted at the same airport at 3 p.m. Monday talking on his phone and pacing. According to TMZ, he has not been arrested or questioned by federal authorities at this stage. The drugs were found inside Paul's travel bags, according to paperwork viewed by TMZ. He was arrested after they tested the suspected narcotics. He's been bailed out of jail. The federal officers who found the drugs in Paul's bags were working in Homeland Security, who raided Diddy's home after obtaining a search warrant. You know what? It's like everything went downhill after he went to Diddy. If he'd have stayed Puff Daddy, he'd have still been... everything would have still been fine. But no. You had to go be difficult. Is that the most recent? That's the most recent update I see. That's crazy, right? Marijuana candy. Yeah. His accountant, Robin Greenhill, she works for Lou Taylor, accused of laundering Brittany's money for her father. Whole thing is going to get wild. Crazy. Crazy stuff. I hope we get to see his court case. Well, you know... Well, it's federal, so... Unfortunately. Federal, right? Isn't it federal? Federal we won't get to. But... is there going to be a trial for... Tupac? You know what? We'll have to ask Detective Dean. Or I can pull it up later. We'll be missing every step you take. Look, if I didn't become a YouTuber, I could have been a rapper or a backup singer. You know, I used to want to be a fly girl. Did y'all? Life dreams gone wrong. Did you ever used to watch In Living Color? Yeah, it'll be federal, so we won't get to see it. Did y'all ever used to watch In Living Color? I wanted to be a fly girl. Life goals. There's still time, but there's not because that show's no longer on. Ronnie Jones' federal lawsuit document is mind-blowing. A lot of federal stuff is pretty crazy. I wish that we got to see that. I really wish that we got to, because some of that stuff is... I used to love In Living Color. You can do what you want to do in Living Color. I used to love that show. Like, me and Jenny from the Block, because this is before she was J-Lo, of course. Me and Jenny from the Block were breaking it down. I was going right along with them in my mom and daddy's living room in Walnut Grove, Georgia, thinking I was going to make it big as a fly girl. I did not make it big as a fly girl, but Jenny from the Block turned into J-Lo. So, I mean, at least there's, you know, there's success in there somewhere. You know, whatever. Unmedicated Brandi. All right, are y'all ready to get started with the... Oh, I read the civil complaint and they redacted names of some but left clues to their ID in the footnotes, just waiting for someone to name them. Oh, Jenbro Devka. It was Jenny from the Block for years. Ooh. Jenny from the Block. And we come back to... Oh, yeah, good point. And we come back to P. Diddy with that. And what does Jenny from the Block have to say now? That's a good question. You know, I didn't even think about that. Look, she's back with... Isn't she married to the other... Isn't she married to Affleck now or something? I don't keep up with a whole lot of celebrity stuff. I'm not really good with it. But isn't she married to Affleck? Affleck. Yes, Walnut Grove is where Little House on the Prairie was. But it's a different... That Walnut Grove is a different state. Walnut Grove, Georgia... Our only claim to fame was the stolen pig. Big old ceramic pig from the barbecue place. It's like our one little intersection. But that's... I bet I can... hold on, there's a story. let me tell you about. Yep, 11 alive. I knew there. I saw this a while back. So this is our this is our barbecue place. This is Kelly's barbecue. Look, I feel like it might need to be my next podcast once Karen Reed is over, you know, like finding out what happened to this dang pig. When I was in high school, the pig was stolen. There used to be a pig, a big old like ceramic pig on this sign out in front of Kelly's barbecue. And all of a sudden one day it was gone. And nobody it's been 25 years now. I'm giving away my age. It's been 25 years now. I want to know if you or anyone you know has a tip that could lead to saving this pig. It's sitting in somebody's granny's barn out in Walnut Grove, Georgia. I can guarantee you that right now because nobody has been able to find it. And this is the best kept secret in Georgia history. 25 years, we have not been able to figure out who took Kelly's barbecue pig. It's tragic. I still want to know. Okay, nobody in Walnut Grove, Georgia, keep a secret. So we were thinking maybe it was like a neighboring school or something. It's been 84 years. Unsolved mysteries. The owner took it to get free advertising. They now sit back and laugh. You know, it's possible. But also, they didn't really need advertising at the time because it's the only place you could go in town to eat. Kelly's Barbecue was the only place. And, you know, actually, I don't know. I haven't been back home in a while, but they had it to where when last time I went back to visit and ate there, it's probably been 10 years ago, but they still had it to where you cannot pay with credit cards, but they still took checks. That's how this place was. But there was, this is the only intersection where, like in Walnut Grove, and there was Kelly's Barbecue on one side, on one corner. There was a gas station on each, like, catty corner, and then there was a liquor store. That was it. That was like the place to be, was that intersection. Barbecue, liquor, and gas. It's like all you really need in Walnut Grove, Georgia. So, but the pig is gone. 500-pound pig. 500-pound pig. I'm going to make a chart. Alex stole it. Damn it, Alex stole it. You know, wouldn't surprise me. It says, this story says, a cold case about cold cuts is heating up in Walnut Grove concerning a stolen 500-pound mascot from the 1980s, and so is a plan to fix a decades-old offense. For nearly a quarter century, a fiberglass, I said ceramic, it's fiberglass, I don't know where I got ceramic, fiberglass pig stood atop Kelly's Barbecue sign, serving as a landmark in the small town until 1999. It was a big mystery, the talk of the town, Christy Eberhardt, the owner, said. It was talk of the town. One fateful day in 1999, workers showed up to work, and the customers arrived. Oh, here's a picture of him. Look, there he is. There's a big old pig right there. Hey, knock it off, kid. That ended up on somebody's trailer and in somebody's barn. 500-pound fiberglass pig. It disappeared. Now Everhart said that there's not a day that passes without them talking about the pig. I'm telling you, this is the biggest news that happened in Walnut Grove. It's still to this day. Did I steal it? No, I did not. Although if I'd have put it in the back pasture barn, nobody would have ever found it because nobody ever went in that barn. But no, I didn't. Front barn, they'd have found it because that's where we kept the horses. But the back barn, I really could. Well, no, because go-karts and stuff were back there. So I didn't have a place to hide it. And also, I was only in high school. Lucy's barking at the pig. Lucy's mad too. Anyway, that's our claim to fame. Walnut Grove, Georgia. Missing 500-pound pig. So if you or anyone you know has a lead or tips that could lead to the recovery of that pig, hit me up. You'd be surprised what a few drunken college dudes can do. I believe it. And it could have been somebody who was home from college, or I don't remember what time of year it happened, but I think that's one of those things that will haunt me till my dying day. Where's the pig? Where's the pig? Maybe the owner did it to create a discussion. It's possible, but at the same time, when you're in a town with like 1,200 people, everybody already knows that they're there. So, is there a reward? I don't know. I'm sure they've done a reward at some point. I don't remember. That's crazy, though. How long has said pig been? Since 1999. It'll be 25 years this year. I was like a sophomore. Dateline episode coming. I truly think about this unsolved mystery at least every 3 months. Yep. That'll be my next podcast. Be my next podcast. It'll stir up an estate sale. It's possible. I'm gonna be mad if it shows up. I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be like, you had us guessing. This has been now more than half my life wondering about this pig. Never give up hope, Holly Mac. Never give up hope. All right. Are we ready to get started? Unmedicated Brandi. Off the rails. Her horse, 50 pounds of bacon. Conspiracy in Walnut Grove. The thing is, if it's a flea market anywhere in 100 miles of Walnut Grove, Georgia, people will know. People will be like, oh, that's Kelly's pig. So they would have to take it, like, out. They'd have to take it out, I think. But maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? All right. So we left off yesterday, now that we've gone totally off the rails. We left off yesterday. Where did we leave off yesterday? What's the pig's name? Maybe we can call it. Here, piggy, piggy, piggy. Come on back. After 25 years. We won't cook you. Oh, God, they had the best Brunswick stew. Whew. Anyway. Where we left off yesterday. So, they're going through the fingerprints. They have the fingerprint and forensics folks up there giving all the deets about the fingerprints that they found. Remember, they had their little chart. You know I love a chart. They have their little chart up there where they had it listed out that they had all of his fingerprints, the defendant's fingerprints on different things, and there was a few of the victims' fingerprints on some stuff. So that is where we left off yesterday.
What was your conclusion with respect to the latent impressions
back
found
up.
on the item with?
Oh.
You anything you need to?
This analysis, you were unaware of who these people were?
Okay, so he was back home. You texted me that he...
It's gone. It I don't know what happened. It likes to kick me out and put me where it wants.
I didn't have any identifiable fingerprints on might rise lower in the list.
Hold on. Now I got to figure out where we were. Fun times. All right, let's see. Oh, because I paused it. And now it's not, when I went to start it again, it's not live anymore. It's me out and put me where it wants.
I didn't have any identifiable.
Ooh, I hate when I hear my voice on here. Here's where we are.
Recovered from this item.
There we go.
Yes.
And who was the source of each one of those recovered impressions based on your analysis, all 19?
Timothy Verrill.
Homework.
Put another way, were there any identifiable latent impressions recovered from that clear garbage bag that did not belong to Timothy Verrill?
No.
What was your conclusion with respect to the latent impressions found on the item with evidence number TLE 69?
They were all identified to Timothy Verrill.
The total number of identified impressions seen below the photo, 4 plus 3 is 7. Does that include all of yours as well as the separate identification made by criminalist Ostrowski?
Yes, it's a combination of the two.
Going back to your processing of the plastic ice melter container, were you able to make identifications for all of the identifiable latent impressions that you recovered from that item?
I was.
And who was the source of each one of those recovered impressions based on your analysis?
Timothy Verrill.
Put another way, were there any identifiable latent impressions recovered from this plastic ice melter container that did not belong to Timothy Verrill?
No.
One moment. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination?
True crime pig.
Almost.
Okay,
Hello.
Ms. Price, so you work in the state lab's pattern evidence unit, right?
Yes.
And you work primarily with fingerprints and latent print impressions?
I'd say the majority of the work is latent print impressions.
And you're familiar with how the state police operate with the major case coordinator with respect to homicide cases?
Yes.
Essentially, that person, well, in the name is a coordinator, meets with investigators. Is that right? Meets with investigators below the coordinator?
Yes.
And occasionally, he meets with members of the prosecution's office.
Yes.
And as a group, it's determined what testing should be done from the evidence that's collected.
Yes.
And when you collect evidence from the scene or otherwise, you don't actually analyze or conduct any testing until you're directed to by the case coordinator or somebody else in the lab.
Correct.
And when you don't receive a directive to conduct further testing on evidence, you often aren't given a reason.
No.
And sometimes you can make recommendations back about how evidence should be tested or what kind of evidence should be tested.
I'm sure I can make recommendations. I'm not sure what type of example you would be referring to, though.
Just thinking if it's a back and forth sometimes, or if they say, can you test this? And you say, this other piece of evidence might go with this, or there's a better way of testing it.
That could happen.
But ultimately, it's not your call whether to test a particular piece of evidence.
No.
Right, so turning to the fingerprints or latent impressions, I just want to make sure I'm clear on a couple of things. I think as you mentioned, and we heard from one person before you, simply touching an object doesn't mean that somebody is going to leave any latent prints behind.
Correct.
And there are a number of factors that can influence when an impression is left behind.
That's true, yes.
Those could be environmental factors like weather, rain, snow.
Yes.
whether somebody is wearing gloves can affect whether an impression is left behind, right?
Yes.
It's highly unlikely or nearly impossible for an impression to be left behind when wearing gloves.
It is not impossible, but it is highly unlikely, yes.
For example, you wear gloves in the lab to ensure that you don't contaminate or
I have it sped up a little
upset
bit.
samples.
Because we're
Yes, and to protect myself
Speed
from the
travel.
items and protect the items from me.
Makes sense. So in order to leave prints, there must be some sort of contaminant on the skin,
Yes,
like, in other words, fingerprint residue.
correct.
That could be sweat. Is that right? Is sweat an example?
Yes,
Oil from the skin,
yes,
and blood's another example.
yes,
And that residue is not just on fingerprints, it could be palms, toes, feet, right?
correct.
And there could be a contaminant that's pre-existent on an object that a print could be depressed into. Is that right?
Yes,
And the object that a person touches will also influence whether an impression is left
that's true.
and the quality of the impression that's left.
Yes.
Would you say, in general, a smoother, non-porous surface is more likely to retain an impression than a porous one?
Not necessarily porous versus non-porous, but a smoother surface is more likely to retain an impression, yes.
Okay. So talk about how it happens, the surface. Now, the timing of a latent impression. Because you can extract an impression or analyze it or compare it, it doesn't tell you when that impression was left.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't tell you when that person touched the object.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't tell you who the last person who touched that object.
Very rarely could you determine that sort of information, no.
It just tells you at some point that person touched it.
Correct.
And on the other hand, the absence of somebody's print on an object doesn't mean that they necessarily didn't touch it. Like, this podium might not have my prints on it, but I have been touching it, right?
Correct.
We heard an example of a shovel. There were no prints on that shovel that were matched with Tim, right?
That's correct.
In fact, you excluded him from the identifiable prints as coming from him.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that he didn't touch it at some point.
Correct.
And it doesn't mean that it was not touched by people other than the person you identified at some point also.
Correct.
Same with TLE 69, which was the ice melt container, right? There were impressions that you identified as coming from Tim,
Yes.
but that doesn't rule out that nobody else touched it at any point.
It does not.
It doesn't tell you when he touched it.
It does not.
It doesn't tell you if he was the last person to touch it.
It does not.
The final thing about this is that the number of prints that you find on an object doesn't necessarily equate to the number of separate contacts a person has with an item.
No, it doesn't directly relate to that. We try to group things, as I was explaining, simultaneous impressions. We try to group them together if we know it was one contact. But if I make 20 identifications on an item, it doesn't necessarily mean it was touched 20 different times, especially if this right index finger shows up multiple times. Well, you can't leave your right index finger multiple times all at the same time. They have to at least be a second apart from each other. So.
Thank you for the explanation. So I'm just going to ask about some processing techniques. There are different techniques that you can use, is that right?
Yes.
And the chosen technique will depend on the nature of the object you're testing.
Yes.
It will also depend on whether the impression was left in blood or not.
Correct.
So if an impression appears to be left in blood, then that involves a specific technique.
There's a series of techniques that could be used for blood impressions.
And when you employ one type of technique on a particular impression, that excludes any further techniques from being used?
It drastically minimizes the effects that other techniques would that other techniques would work as well as they would have.
Okay. So you want to be careful about the type of technique that you use.
Correct.
And the impressions that you talked about today, none of them were left in blood, right?
None of them appeared to be in blood. The black trash bag was very dark in color, so it'd be very difficult to determine if there was a blood component to the latent print residue. I didn't observe bloody impressions, but I can't tell you for certain what those were made of.
And you didn't employ those techniques that are designed to work on bloody impressions, right?
No, the black trash bag wouldn't have, I wouldn't have been able to see the hers is also dark.
And on all the other ones that you did, the TLE 55, which was a clear bag, and the ice melt, which is a clear bottle, there were no impressions left in blood on those.
Those I wasn't able to see any bloody impressions and didn't process for bloody impressions.
You tested and did comparisons in this case, or analysis and comparison in this case, more than one time, right?
Yes.
I think it seems like most of your testing was in February and July of 2017.
I would have to look at the dates of my reports to remember the exact time frames.
My approach?
Yes.
For a refresher memory, you just looked at the dates of these reports?
Yes.
I think I know. I think you know where to look for those, so they're over here.
Okay. Thank you. And what was the question again?
Basically, the time frame in which you conducted the testing for this case.
2017, 18, and 19.
Okay. And the last one in 2019 is January 3rd, 2019?
Yes.
Again, let's mark this case Exhibit 62. You had testified quite a bit to this, particularly the objects in dark purple, which are TLE 55 and 3 of its children objects, and again D, G, and K. So I'm just going to go quickly through each of these. TLE 55, you testified most of those prints were outside of the bag?
Correct.
And 2 of the prints were found on the red pull strap at the top?
Yes.
And just because 2 latent prints were found on that red strap doesn't mean that they were left when that strap was being pulled or when the bag was being cinched?
No, not necessarily. They could be slightly exposed without it being cinched.
And again, you don't know if those, and you didn't see that those impressions were left in blood?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I'm sorry, I jumbled it. Those impressions were not left in blood?
I didn't observe any reddish-brown fingerprint residue, so I don't believe they were left in blood.
I think we'll get to an abbreviation later, but RBS seems to be a common abbreviation.
RBS would be referring to a reddish-brown stain in general, but that's not necessarily directly related to what friction ridge detail is deposited in.
That just sort of denotes that it looks like this might be blood, so analysts can understand what is being brought to the lab?
Yes, it's a common acronym.
Again, for 55D, which is a lighting box, that impression was not left in blood?
No.
Same with 55G, which was the clear tape?
No.
And on the clear tape, the impressions were both on the adhesive side and the non-adhesive side?
Yes.
And again, 55K, which was a clear bag within the larger bag, the single fingerprint on that was not left in blood?
Again, as with all of these, there could be minute amounts of blood in any impression. It's just whether it has a reddish-brown hue to it that would allow us to determine to process one way or another. So I can't definitively say that it doesn't have it. However, that was not the observation.
So you didn't observe it on any of these, and you didn't process it as if it was, right?
Some of these I didn't process, but I didn't process any of the items for bloody impressions that you have here.
Okay. Or you also testified you reviewed items, reviewed other processing.
Correct.
And there's nothing in these that you either analyzed, processed yourself, or reviewed that said that those prints were impressed in blood?
Correct. There was nothing that made me believe that they were in blood.
Okay, so again, this chart mentions 4 items and it's relating to TLE 55. May I approach now?
Yes.
Starting with marked as Defense Exhibit AF. Now there are 4 items on that chart that the state presented, but that didn't encompass your complete review of what was in TLE 55.
Well, projection basis of knowledge, she didn't actually process any of the items in TLE 55.
All right, can you try to lay a foundation for her basis of knowledge on that?
You reviewed all the items or processed the items in TLE 55?
I reviewed photographs of developed impressions of items in the TLE 55 series. And then 2 of them I processed myself, A and G.
And you wrote a report about all of the impressions and processing and examinations of every item in TLE 55?
The report included the work of another individual.
Okay. So you reviewed the work of the other individual while you put this in your report?
I reviewed it to the extent that I could transfer it into the report.
Okay. And was that from Ms. Polonzi,
Yes.
who the jury will hear from? And again, I'm going to just approach to show you that. Do you remember what date that is?
July 17th, 2018.
So by creating this report, you are familiar with the other objects that were in that bag?
I am
You want me to show you the report?
Pardon?
Would it be helpful to you just to see the report?
Is that the same one you just showed me? I have a copy of it, but it would be, if I'm allowed to refer to that?
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize, earlier I said I processed A and G, but that was of the GMH 15 series, not of the TLE series, so I apologize for that. TLE 55A is a decorative lighting box with reddish brown stains.
Okay. And what about TLE 55B?
TLE 55B is a metal rod with reddish brown stains.
And what about TLE 55C?
Metal rod and decorative end cap with reddish brown stains.
And that brings us to TLE 55D, which was on the exhibit that was shown to the jury. Can you just remind them what that says?
Decorative lighting box with reddish brown stains.
And then TLE 55E?
Candle holder with reddish brown stains.
And TLE 55, please? Sorry, 55F, excuse me.
Multiple paper towels with brownish stains.
And I think you mentioned that on direct at the beginning, that that was one of the items that you had processed at the beginning.
I know it was paper towels. I'm not 100% sure on which paper towels, but it might have been that one.
Okay. So moving on, TLE 55G, again, that was on State's Exhibit 62, which the jury saw. That is multiple pieces of clear tape with, with reddish brown stains.
Yes.
And TLE 55H, please.
Decorative elephant with reddish brown stains.
Okay. TLE 55I, please.
Lighting fixture with reddish brown stains.
TLE 55J, please.
Do you mean K?
That's right. So it skips between I and K on that report, right?
Yes.
And do you remember TLE 55J being a towel with blood on it?
I remember there being a towel that was not conducive to processing.
Okay. And that was in TLE 55?
I'm not 100% sure what the exhibit number was.
Okay.
Actually, it might even say it in here. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not listed on this.
And it wasn't conducive to testing?
Correct.
And that's because of its surface?
Yes, generally cloth-like material does not recover identifiable impressions very well.
Okay. And So next is TLE 55K, please.
One plastic bag with reddish brown stains.
Okay. And again, that was on State's Exhibit 62. That is one.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I am trying so hard to focus on this, but it just drags on. The defendant's brother testifies. Let's skip to this. Let me get the main. Let's do a little. This is what we're gonna do. I'm sorry. I love y'all, but I know that I'm not the only one who is having trouble focusing because we've never had this few people be able to stick it out and watch anyway. Alrighty. They're saying that this is going to continue through most of April. And we got plans in April. Let me see. All right, so here's our highlights. They stopped even doing highlights for everything after day 5. Day 5 highlights, it says, New Hampshire Chief Medical Examiner told jurors that Christine Sullivan and Jenna Pellegrini died from multiple stab wounds. The manner of death was ruled homicide. Christine had 2 defensive wounds to her hand. We heard this part. One was on the tip of her little finger on her left hand. They both had drugs in their system at the time of their deaths, and they were shown close to 200 evidence photos of the crime. So let's get to the brother.
If you could come around the back side of the witness stand, you'll see that it opens up.
Normally I am all for doing an entire trial. I had no idea that this trial was so long. And also, like, most of the people who asked us to play it got bored and left, and they're not here, so.
Step inside, and would you kindly raise your right hand and remain standing for a moment? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the jury will be the truth and the whole truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon. If you could please start just by introducing yourself to the jury.
My name is Jeff Verrill.
What town do you live in?
I live in Salisbury, Massachusetts.
Back in January and February of 2017, were you living in the same place?
No.
Where were you living then?
30 Quaker Street, Newton, New Hampshire.
What do you do for work?
I'm a supervisory auditor with the Department of Defense.
And who are your parents?
Suzanne and Richard Verrill.
Do you have any siblings?
I do.
Is Timothy Verrill one of your siblings?
Yes.
Do you see Tim in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Can you just point him out for us and identify something he's wearing?
The gray sweater.
I'd ask the record reflect the witnesses identified Mr. Verrill, the defendant.
Any objection?
This is the defendant's brother.
So I'm going to show you up on the screen, and it should be on the screen in front of you as well, what's been marked as State's Exhibit
Still a
30W. Do you recognize?
See, that's the thing. The bro stuff, and there was so much. It started out really interesting, and then it's just started really.
Is the individual in those photographs?
I do.
Who is it?
That is Tim.
And back in January and February of 2017, what type of vehicle was your brother driving?
I think it was a blue Honda CR-V.
And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 71. Do the pictures in that exhibit appear to be the vehicle your brother was driving at the time?
Yes.
And back in that time frame, about how often would you see your brother?
On the weekends.
Once a month, twice a month?
3-4 times a month.
And where was he living during that time frame?
Cushing Street in Dover.
Was he living there with anyone else?
Yes.
Who was that?
Crystal, his girlfriend, and then they had 2 roommates.
And again, still talking about this time frame, late 2016 into 2017, what was the defendant doing for work?
I wasn't aware of anything.
Do you know if he was employed at all during that time?
No.
Do you know how he got money or what his source of income was at that time?
No.
Did you know or suspect at that time that the defendant was dealing or selling drugs?
No.
Did you know or suspect at that time that he was using drugs?
No.
I want to focus you now on a specific day in January, Saturday, January 28th of 2017. Do you recall that day as a day you went out to run some errands with your brother?
Yes.
And in the days prior to that, did you have any communication with him?
Not that I recall.
So tell us how it happened that you come to spend some time with the defendant on that Saturday, the 28th.
For some reason, I had mail still going to my parents' house, even though I owned a property. And I would go up there on weekends to collect it.
So you went to Dover and ended up meeting up with the defendant?
Yes.
Do you remember about what time it was when you met up with him that day?
No.
And do you remember testifying in this matter previously in 2019?
Yes.
If I showed you a transcript of that testimony, would that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
So it's page 874, line 9 through 11. So I'm going to show you this page. I'll ask you to start on line 9. You can review anything you need to, and then look up at me when you're done. Does that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
About what time did you meet up with the defendant that day?
1:30.
And what did the two of you do?
We ran errands.
Do you remember where you went?
Cell phone store, Target, Red Shoe Barn, Papa Bear Auto Care, and I don't remember if there's one more or not.
Okay. Whose card did you take when you went to run those errands?
Tim's.
And you mentioned in there just now you went to a cell phone store. Where was the cell phone store?
Downtown Dover.
Do you know why your brother wanted to go to the cell phone store?
No.
Once you were actually at the store, what happened?
I talked him out of getting a phone.
So he was looking to buy a new phone and you talked him out of that?
Yes.
Why?
I don't think Sprint's a very good company.
Fair enough. Did he tell you why he needed a new cell phone?
No.
Did you know whether or not at that point he already had a cell phone?
I don't remember.
And again, if I show you a transcript of that prior testimony, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
This is page 875. You can review whatever you need to on that page and look up when you
I'm going to skip while he's
Did he
reading.
already have a cell phone at the time you went to that cell phone store?
Okay. Okay.
Does that help refresh your memory?
Yes, that says that he did.
Well, do you remember him having one at that time?
My previous testimony says that he did. I don't remember.
So you don't have an independent recollection of whether or not he had a phone at the time?
Not currently, no.
And reading this doesn't refresh your memory on that point?
It states that I said it, so if I said it then, it must have been true.
Did you know at that point whether or not he had actually been to that same store on that earlier that day?
I don't remember.
Did you have any discussion with him at the cell phone store about how he would pay for that cell phone?
No.
And did you know whether or not he had actually purchased a new cell phone earlier that day?
That says that he did.
Do you have an independent recollection of that at all?
It was 7 years ago.
So reading that doesn't necessarily help you remember that he did in fact or did not purchase a new cell phone earlier that day?
If my previous statements have said that he had a phone earlier in the day, then he had a phone earlier in the day.
So I'm going to show you now State's Exhibit 12A, and we see 4 photographs around the outside of that exhibit. Do you recognize the people in those photographs?
I do.
Who are they?
Crystal and Tim. Crystal's wearing the red coat in front. Tim's wearing the white hat.
And ultimately, you said you talked the defendant out of getting a new phone. Does he buy a new phone while you're there with him or not?
No.
Do you remember where you went next?
It was either Red Shoe Barn or Target.
Well, let's talk about Red Shoe Barn first. Is that in Dover as well?
Yes.
Do you remember if the defendant purchased anything at Red Shoe Barn?
He bought a pair of boots, I think.
Did he buy anything else that you remember?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Do you know how he paid for the boots that he purchased at Red Shoe Barn?
No.
Did he tell you why he was getting new boots?
No.
And now I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 10A, and I'll focus you on the top 2 photos. Do you recognize the individuals in those photos?
Yes, that is Tim in the front and me walking in behind him.
Okay, so Tim, it looks like is wearing the red flannel, and you're behind wearing the looks like a gray shirt and a black coat?
Yes.
And then you mentioned Target as well. Was Target also in Dover, or was that somewhere else?
It's either Dover or Somersworth.
Did the defendant purchase anything at Target?
Yes.
What did he purchase?
I don't remember.
And if I showed you some of your prior testimony, would that
Yes.
help?
This is the live video of the lunar eclipse.
Just look over that. Look up maybe when you're done.
I heard the world's gonna end or something because of it.
Okay, he got some clothes that day.
But not till
Did you
April.
purchase anything
Like
at Target that you remember?
Not that I remember.
But that just means I don't have to pay taxes, right?
And did the defendant tell you at any time why he was buying these items at Target?
No.
Do you recall how he paid for those items?
No.
So I'm going to show you now State's Exhibit 22, and let's talk about the top row, the photograph on the left and the photograph in the middle. Do you recognize the people in those photos?
Yes, that is me walking in the front and Tim behind. We were in the same clothes as earlier.
And then on the bottom right photograph, is that again you and Tim?
Yes.
And it looks like in that bottom right photograph, you're both carrying bags. Do you remember if those were things he bought, you bought, both?
I don't recall making any purchases, so I must have helped Tim carry his stuff out.
And you mentioned as well a little bit earlier going to Papa Bear Auto Care. Did you go to that shop after Target?
Yes.
And what did the defendant have done to his car at Papa Bear Auto Care?
He had an oil change, he had it vacuumed, and had his headlights resurfaced.
Was that the last stop you made with the defendant that day?
I believe so, yes.
Where did you go after leaving Papa Bear?
We would have gone to get my car, which probably would have been on Cushing Street.
So back to the defendant's residence to get your car?
Yes.
About what time do you think you got back to his apartment to get your car?
I don't recall.
And again, if I showed you some
Yes.
prior testimony, would that help refresh your recollection?
Oops. Sorry.
On down.
All right, so...
Do you know what the defendant had planned for later that evening?
I think he was going to go meet up with some friends.
So is that the last time you see him, Saturday the 28th, when you go back to pick up your car?
Yes.
And having spent some time with him that day, running errands with him, do you recall how he was acting that day or what his demeanor was like?
I do not remember.
And if I showed you some prior testimony, would
Yes.
that help?
This is the brother.
All right, so it says he seemed off.
So he seemed off that day?
Yes.
Did he make any statements to you about why he might be off that day?
He said he had stopped drinking.
Did you know him to be a drinker at the time?
Yes.
Did you know him to have a drinking problem?
I don't know if I would have called it a problem.
Did he tell you when he had stopped drinking?
Not that I remember.
During the time that you spent with the defendant on that Saturday, January 28th, did he ever mention anything about a Christine Sullivan to you?
I think he received a phone call at some point during the day.
Do you know who called him?
No.
And how do you know that this phone call was related to Christine?
He must have mentioned the name.
Was there any discussion that you had with the defendant after that phone call about Christine being missing?
I think I may have said, I hope she's okay.
Do you remember asking the defendant if he knew anything about it?
No.
And if I showed you some prior testimony, would that help?
Yes.
Refresh your recollection.
Look, it's kind of cool. You can see it changing. Sorry, I know my ADDs. I did take my medicine, right?
This is the grand jury transcript page.
The bridge from Cincinnati to
Do
Covington.
that to
Wait,
yourself.
what about
Go.
that bridge?
Okay, so I asked if he knew anything about it. He said no.
Do you remember whether or not the defendant had any particular reaction to receiving that phone call?
Not that I recall.
Do you remember if he seemed at all concerned or alarmed?
Not that I recall.
Was there any additional conversation about the phone call after that?
Not that I recall.
So you said you part ways with the defendant about between 4:30 and 5 that day. Did you have any other contact with him on Saturday the 28th?
I think he texted me later in the day.
What did he text you, if you remember?
He needed a ride home.
Did he ask you to pick him up?
I believe he did.
Did you?
No.
And do you remember where he was when he texted you to pick him up?
No.
And if I again showed you some prior testimony, would that help?
Yes.
Loose. Shh. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look at them.
This is the transcript 885 and 886.
Oh my gosh, how cute. Sorry, ADD. I don't think I did take my meds.
Or actually, so I'll just show you 886, and I'll ask you to start at line 7.
Okay, so he was back home. You texted me that he freaked out and he was back home.
So when he texted you to pick him up, he was freaking out. That's how you described it?
That's what was described there, yes.
Come back.
Had that ever happened before, where the defendant sent you a message that he's freaking out and he needs you to come pick him up?
No.
So that was an unusual event?
Yes.
Did you have any additional contact or communication with him after that on Saturday, the 28th?
Not that I recall.
So now I want to move into the next day, Sunday, January 29th. Did you see the defendant on that day?
Yes.
Did you have plans with him for that day?
I was going to do an impromptu cookout at my house.
At your house?
Yes.
So do you go to the defendant? Does he come to you? How does that happen?
I went up to Dover.
And then you said the cookout was at your house. So how do you guys get to your house from Dover?
I drove my car. I believe Crystal drove her car.
Was Tim with Crystal in her car?
I don't recall.
So who all ends up at your house?
It's me, Tim, I had a roommate at the time, and Crystal.
While your brother was at your house that day, did he get a call from state police?
Yes.
Did the defendant tell you why the police were calling him?
He said it was about Christine.
What was his reaction to that?
He was uneasy.
How did you respond?
I asked him if he didn't, I said if he didn't know anything,
I'll share the link.
it's better to get it out of the way now and be free and clear of it.
Does the defendant tell you at that point if he's seen Christine lately?
No.
And then does he provide the police with your address?
Yes, he does.
What did the defendant do after giving the police your address?
He went outside to wait.
What did you do?
I poured a drink and I went outside to wait. I was going to go outside to wait with him.
Did you see anything as you went outside to wait with him?
Tim was driving away.
Which car was he driving?
Crystal's car.
Where was Crystal as this was happening?
Inside the house.
So the defendant left your house in Crystal's car with Crystal still there?
Yes.
Did he do anything to the car before he left?
At that point in time, I didn't notice.
Did you later notice
Yes.
something on the car had been changed?
Yes.
What was that?
The license plates have been changed.
And what license plates were on the car initially?
They would have been Crystal's plates initially.
Would those have been New Hampshire plates?
Yes.
And then what license plates were on the car that you noticed later?
My roommate's license plates were on his car.
Were those New Hampshire plates or something else?
Massachusetts.
Do you know where the defendant went when he left your house in Crystal's car?
No.
So now he's taken off. You've got police on the way to your house. What did you do?
I called, I'm assuming the dispatcher, explained the situation, and waited for the police to arrive.
Did you try to call the defendant?
I must have.
Do you recall if he ever answered?
No.
Did you try to text him?
Probably.
And again, do you recall if he ever answered?
No.
Was that like the defendant to just go completely off the grid like that?
No.
Did the police then eventually arrive at your house?
Yes.
What happened when the police got there?
I spoke with one of the detectives, and the other one spoke with Crystal.
And did you agree to be interviewed and answer their questions?
Yes.
So, still talking about that Sunday, the 29th, after the police were at your house, do you see or have any contact with the defendant again at all that day?
No.
At some point on Sunday, after the defendant left your house, did you learn that Christine was dead?
Yes.
How did you learn that information?
It was either the news or a phone call.
And what did you do with that information? Did you call and tell your mother?
No, I told her the next day.
So let's move now to that following day, Monday, January 30th. What did you do that day?
I would have dropped Crystal off at her house, and I went to my parents' house.
Did you see any cars at your parents' house when you went there?
Yes.
Which cars?
Crystal's car was there.
Did you know that Crystal's car was going to be at your parents' house?
I did not.
And was it at that point that you noticed Crystal's car had your roommate's license plates on it?
It was either then or when I was looking at the car later.
So I'm going to show you now State's Exhibit 70, and looking at the two photos on the top, do you recognize that car?
Yes.
Whose car is that?
That would be Crystal's car.
And we can see the license plate in the top right photo. Is that your roommate's license plate?
Yes.
So after you see the car outside, did you go into your parents' house?
Yes.
Did you find the defendant inside of your parents' house?
Yes.
Where was he?
He was sleeping on the sofa.
What did you do?
I called the trooper that I had spoken with and told him that Tim was there.
Did you have any conversation with Tim before the police arrived?
No.
So do the police then arrive at the house?
Yes.
And does the defendant go with the police after they get there?
Yes.
Do you see the defendant again later that day?
Yes.
Where?
I picked him up from the Dover police station.
Where did you go from the Dover police station?
He wanted to come back to my house.
So did you go back to your house?
Yes.
Did you have any conversation with him about where he went when he had left your house the previous day?
No.
Did you have any conversation with him about what was going on with the two women that had been killed?
No.
Why not?
I wanted to keep everything as stress-free as possible.
So you're back at your house now with the defendant. What happens the rest of the day on Monday?
I think he went upstairs to sleep.
Do you remember the police coming back to your house that day?
Yes.
And what happened when they came back?
They had a warrant, and they took him for several hours.
Did he ever mention Christine or a woman named Jenna Pellegrini that day?
No.
So for the remainder of that week after Monday, going into the first few days of February, where was the defendant staying?
He was staying in my house.
Were you working at all that week?
No.
So you were just staying at home with the defendant?
I was taking leave, yes.
And during that week that he's staying at your house, do you remember the defendant telling you he's hearing voices at any point?
I don't think he described it like that, and it was at the hospital. He said something like the TV was talking to him, but it wasn't making any sense.
And you mentioned a hospital just now. Did you end up taking the defendant to a hospital that week?
To 2 hospitals that week.
Where did you go first? What was the first hospital?
Exeter.
Whose idea was it for the defendant to go to the hospital?
It was his.
And how did that come up that he wanted to go to the hospital?
I don't remember.
So you go to Exeter Hospital. Were you with him while he's talking with the hospital staff?
I would have been in and out of the room, yes.
And do you hear the defendant telling any of the hospital staff what kind of drugs he's using at the time?
Yes.
What were those?
The ones that stood out were cocaine and methamphetamines.
While at the hospital, did you also hear the defendant tell the staff how he got some scratches on his arm?
Yes.
What did he say?
I don't recall exactly, but I remember the responses were different to different people.
So you remember him giving 2 different descriptions to 2 different people about how he got those scratches?
Yes.
And you mentioned there was a second hospital. Which hospital was that?
Holy Family in Haverhill.
What happened when you went to that hospital?
We were there for 13 hours, and the social worker found him a bed in a program.
Do you remember what program that was?
Leahy.
What type of program is that?
Drugs, psychological.
And what did you do after the social worker got him into that program?
I dropped him off.
So during this entire week that we've talked about, the end of January through the beginning of February that he's with you at your house, does he ever have any conversation with you about Christine Sullivan?
No.
Does he ever mention a Jenna Pellegrini at all?
No.
If I could have one moment.
Yeah.
That's all I have for you right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Good afternoon. You are Tim's older brother?
Yes.
You said earlier that on the Saturday that you went on errands, that he seemed off that day?
Yes.
But it wasn't just that day. He had been seen off the last couple times you'd seen him.
Yes.
In fact, I mean, you talked to the police right after this happened, right? Right after he was arrested?
Could you explain the timetable a bit better?
Sure. Just trying to say that you've been cooperative and answered questions to the police when they asked you.
Yes.
And you went to the grand jury.
Yes.
You testified at the first trial.
Yes.
And so when you say that he was off, what you're saying is that he was stressed and he had been stressed during that month.
Yes.
So there was nothing in particular while you were doing the errands that you noticed that was different about him for that month.
Correct.
You said that you went to a car cleaning place.
This is the one where she's like yelling. It sounds like she's yelling from the other
Yes.
room.
You don't know if you paid for that service.
I do not recall, no.
But the receipt itself would be accurate.
It would be yes.
Your parents lived in Dover?
Yes.
So it makes sense that you would come up, visit them, and visit him around the same time?
Yes.
And you're close to your parents?
Yes, I make it a point to see them as much as possible.
And you also had close family. You were close to a cousin at that time that wasn't doing well?
Correct.
And were you planning a trip or trying to plan a trip for them?
Yes, she had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I was trying to get us a trip to Amsterdam.
And was this the cousin that Tim was close with in particular?
Yes.
Was Tim close to her?
Yes.
And some information that you've gotten in Thanksgiving before this, right?
Yes.
And you weren't able to make that trip?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Just briefly, you talked about the defendant being sort of off that entire month, so that one particular Saturday wasn't necessarily
Hi, big girl.
Was it particularly unusual for him to text you at a restaurant with friends saying he's freaking out and asking you to pick up?
Yes, that was unusual.
And was it particularly unusual for him to leave a cookout in his girlfriend's car and leave his girlfriend on?
Yes.
Any recross?
No, you're on.
All right, thank you. You may step down to excuse.
Okay, so next up is the defendant's stepmama.
And as you step in there, could you please give to the jury will be the truth and...
Also, I had no idea that this was going to go through the end of April. And as you know, I have Chad Daybell and Karen Reed in April. So we are going to have to come up with a plan to basically do the highlights of this one. If anybody is going to follow the entire thing, if you want to take note of the highlights and send them to me with timestamps or whatever, then we can watch some of it together. But there's no way that I'm going to be able to do 3 trials and the podcast and like live in general.
The whole truth under the penalties of perjury.
I do.
So you can step up and take your seat. Just be a little careful there. Thank you. And I'm just going to ask you to pull the microphone down a little, but you don't have to pull it forward. That should be good.
Okay.
Try to keep your voice up as best you can.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. If you could please just start by introducing yourself to the jury.
My name is Suzanne Verrill.
Where do you live?
In Dover.
Are you married?
Yes.
Who's your husband?
Richard Verrill, 2 stepchildren.
Are 2 of your children Jeffrey and Timothy?
Yes.
Is Timothy here in the courtroom today?
I assume so. I haven't seen him.
Well, if you can stand up.
There he
please.
is.
Okay.
Yep.
And
that's
can you just point him out and tell us something he's wearing?
He's wearing, it looks like a gray sweater.
I asked the record to reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. So I want to talk about the time frame back around the end of 2016 going into January of 2017. What was the defendant's relationship with his brother Jeff like at that time?
They have always been very close.
How often were you aware they would see each other around that time?
I don't know how often that they would see each other. They didn't share that with me.
How close were they in age?
They were 18 months apart.
And is Jeff the older brother?
Yes, he is.
During that same time frame, where was the defendant living?
I believe with his girlfriend, Crystal.
Do you know what town that was in?
It was in Dover.
Had you ever been to their residence in Dover?
No.
And did you know about how long he had been living in Dover with Crystal?
Not really.
Do you know where he was living prior to living in Dover with Crystal?
I believe he was living with some friends.
And again, during this same time frame, what was the defendant doing for work?
I don't remember exactly what he was doing at the time for work. He has had different jobs.
Did you and or your husband provide him with any money during that time?
Rarely.
So do you know at all what he was doing then around that time to support himself?
No.
During the same time frame, how often would you see the defendant?
Occasionally.
Would that typically be at your house?
Yes.
And I want to talk now about a specific day, January 28th of 2017. Do you recall that night as the night you received a phone call from the defendant?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that phone call?
He asked me to pick him up.
Where was he?
He was in Barrington, in front of Dante's. It's a restaurant on Route 125.
Did he say anything else on that phone call?
No, just asked me to pick him up.
How did he sound on that phone call?
He sounded a little upset.
Has he ever called you for that type of help before?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
Oh, he would not have a ride. Mom, can you please pick me up?
But has he ever called you emotional, asking you to pick him up while he's out with friends?
No.
Do you remember about what time it would have been when you got that phone call?
No, I do not remember. I know it was late at night.
Okay, so later in the evening?
Yes.
Did you get any text messages from the defendant before that phone call, if you remember?
I do not remember. I know you showed them to me, so I must have, but I don't remember.
And I'm actually going to show you those now. So I'm showing you, it's should be up on this screen and also on yours. What I'm going to do is so on the first page we have 3 messages here at the bottom, and the second page has a single message at the top. So I'm going to focus you on the 3 messages at the bottom of page 1.
Okay.
And you see you just flip back to that. We see a name on the right-hand side, and it says Suzanne Verrill, 603-767-1026. Was that your phone number at the time?
Yes.
And that first, go back again, sorry, apologies. That first message was sent at 6:36 p.m. on Saturday, January 28th, and it says, I've been having some weird days. It says that was sent from TV to you, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then there's another message at 6:36 p.m. on that same day, TV to you, that says, I think I need to see a doctor.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
And then at 6:39 p.m. TV to you, I've been having some weird days. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take that back for now. Do you recall receiving those text messages from the defendant on that Saturday?
Yes.
So during, you get this phone call from the defendant, he asks you to come pick him up at Dante's. Do you go and pick him up?
Yes, I did.
How did he appear to you when you picked him up?
He seemed upset. Excuse me.
Can you describe that a little more?
He seemed antsy, and just generally just upset.
Do you remember describing to the police that he was having a serious meltdown?
Yes.
Is that consistent with how he appeared at the time?
Yes.
Had you ever seen him acting like this before, to this extent?
Not as an adult, no.
And how were you feeling at that point based on how he was acting?
I was very concerned about him.
Where did you take him after you picked him up from Dante's?
I believe we went home at that time.
Home to your house?
Yes.
When you get home, was he still acting the same way?
Yes.
Did you know if your son was using drugs at that time?
I assumed he was.
Had you ever seen him on drugs that you're aware of?
No.
Had you ever had any conversations with him about the fact that he had been using drugs?
Just minor conversations.
So what did you do next?
I believe I took him to Wentworth Douglas.
And that's Wentworth Douglas Hospital?
Yes.
Why'd you take him there?
Because it's the local hospital.
Did he make any statements to you about when he had last used drugs?
I don't remember him saying anything about when he had used the drugs, but that he had been using meth and cocaine and something else.
So when you take him to the hospital, does anybody go with you, or is it just you and the defendant?
It is just me and him.
And now I'm going to try to show you. Do you see 4 photographs on that exhibit, and it's also on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
Can you identify the people in each of those 4 photos?
It is Tim and I.
And if you can look at the top left photo, towards the bottom, there's a date and timestamp written in yellow. Are you able to read that?
Yes.
What does that say?
It says 1:28, and then it's a little difficult to read the time. I assume it's 8:59 and some seconds.
Would that be consistent with about when you arrived at the hospital with your son?
Yes.
And if you look at the bottom 2 photos, does that look like you and your son leaving the hospital?
Yes, it does.
And do you see a date and time on that bottom right photo?
Yes. It says 10:52 p.m.
Would that be consistent with about when you left the hospital?
Yes.
While you were at the hospital, were you present with the defendant when he was talking to hospital staff?
Yes.
Did you hear him say anything to hospital staff about what kind of drugs he had been using?
I don't remember.
Do you remember testifying previously?
Yes, about the meth and the cocaine I knew about and something else. So
do you remember him saying meth and cocaine at the hospital?
He must have, yeah.
Did he end up getting admitted to the hospital for treatment that night?
No.
So where did you go after you left the hospital?
I believe we went back home, to our house.
And how was he acting when you got back to your house?
I think he was still upset, so coming down from whatever he was using.
During this entire time that you're with him on Saturday, the 28th, so from picking him up at Dante's, bringing him back to your house, then the hospital, then back to your house, does he ever say anything to you about a Christine Sullivan?
No.
Or a Jenna Pellegrini?
No.
So what does the defendant do when you get back to your house?
I believe he went to bed.
What did you do?
I went to bed.
Was the defendant still there when you woke up the next morning?
I believe he had left by that time.
When you woke up and he was not there, do you know where he went?
No, I do not.
You had picked him up at the restaurant the night before, so did he have a car at your house?
I don't remember.
Well, were you surprised that he was gone when you got up that morning?
No, I imagine he had walked home.
So on that Sunday, January 29th, after you get up, you realize he's gone. Do you have any contact with him that day?
I don't remember.
Well, I'm going to go back to State's Exhibit 16, and this is that second page we were talking about. There's a message from Sunday, January 29th at 10:29 p.m. TV to you, and again, we see your name there. Was that your phone number at the time?
Yes.
And the text message says, "I don't know what I'm doing." Do you remember receiving that text from your son?
Yes.
Did you have any additional communication with him after that?
I don't remember. It's been so many years ago.
Did you see him in person at all that Sunday?
I don't remember.
At some point on Sunday, did the police come to your house?
Yes, they did.
Who were they looking for when they arrived?
They were looking for Tim.
Did you speak with the police?
Briefly.
Did your husband talk to them as well?
I don't remember.
Do you know where the defendant was when he sent you that text message at 10:29 p.m.?
No, I do not.
But at that point, now you know the police are looking for him?
Yes.
Did you know that the defendant had fled from the police when they went to Jeff's house the day before?
No, I did not.
So moving on now to the next day, Monday, January 30th, did the police come back to your house that morning?
I believe they did.
Were they again looking for your son?
Yes.
And where was he that morning?
I don't remember.
Do you remember if he was at your house?
I don't remember.
Well, do you remember the police coming to your house and leaving with the defendant on one morning?
Well, then he must have been there.
But do you remember the police coming and leaving with Tim one morning?
Vaguely.
Do you remember if you had any conversation with him before the police arrived and took him that morning?
I do not remember.
Did you see the defendant again later that week?
I believe we saw him when he was in a rehab center.
So that would have been the next time you saw him was when he was
Yes.
in rehab? Do you remember where that was?
It was down in Massachusetts. Was it the Leahy? It was the Leahy where he was.
And during that time, did you have any conversation with him about the fact that the police had been looking for him?
I don't remember.
Did you have any conversation with him about Christine Sullivan or Jenna Pellegrini?
Never.
Did you ask him those questions?
No, I did not.
And he never mentions anything to you about it?
No.
If I could have one moment, Judge. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Cross-examination?
Hi, Julia.
You said that when you picked up Tim from the restaurant, he was pretty emotional,
Yes.
hyper.
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what his baseline is, personality, what he's normally like?
Normally, it's pretty calm. He doesn't get upset easily.
And is he talkative?
Yes.
And when he's calm, does he? I'm sorry. So he's talkative when he wants to be, or
Yes. Just a general.
Okay. And does he like to move around when he's calm?
Yeah, he does.
So it wouldn't be unusual for him to walk back and forth while he's talking to somebody?
No, that would not be unusual.
What did he do? Did he have a job downtown Dover before he became unemployed?
Yes, he worked in a shop in the mill.
What kind of shop was it?
The gentleman produced items made out of rocks.
And who made some of those items made out of rocks?
I'm sorry, what?
Who made some of those items made out of rocks?
Tim. Tim made items.
He's artistic?
Very much so.
Shortly, in the months prior to Tim's arrest, did your family receive sad news about one of his cousins?
Yes.
And what was the nature of the relationship between Tim and the cousin's name is Robin?
Yes, Robin. They apparently had been in quite a bit of contact. She was dying of a very rare form of cancer, and she wanted to see Amsterdam before she died, and Tim wanted to go with her.
And was she well enough to go to Amsterdam?
No, she failed rather quickly.
Oh, wait. Background questions. So this happened 7 years ago?
Yeah, over 7 years now.
Since that time, you've had to take care of your husband?
Yes?
Because he's not been well?
Yes.
And you've had a couple grandchildren into your life?
Yes.
And you're trying to help out your son, Jeff?
Yes.
A lot going on in your life?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, okay, this would just be released.
Yes, and then you may step in. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We are not going to do this. Let's see. Okay. All right. Sorry. I had to get a couple things situated. Oh yeah, there are a lot of people. This is actually, this is actually the restaurant that is right down the street from me, and we walk by there sometimes, and Lucy loves it because there are so... Oh, am I muted? I thought I unmuted myself when I started talking. Oh, you hear me? Okay. Oh, I was talking to myself before. I should stop doing that. Anytime I'm on the phone, because I can't hear out of my phone. I definitely didn't take my medicine. I can tell. I thought I did, but I think I just put it here, but never did. And now it's too late. Anyway, when I'm talking on my phone, I can't hear out of this part, but so I always put it on speaker, and I'll sit here and I'll hold my phone like this, but you can't really see it because so it's down here. So anytime I'll mute myself and I'm on the phone, you can't see that I'm on the phone, but then people are like, every single time people are like, you know, we can't hear you. And then there are times when I'm just sitting here just chatting to y'all and I'm muted and have no idea. So, you know what? One day I'll get my life together, but today is not that day. So we're going to have to swap things up a little bit. Because looking into this, I didn't know that it was going to last quite as long as it's scheduled to last. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is this is a very slow-paced trial. And while we obviously want to, you know, see justice for the victims, I also have to make you know, business related decisions as well. And we're just not gonna be able to follow this entire one. So what we're gonna do is I am going to try to do we'll keep up with this one and you know, do like recaps and stuff, but there's not. Chad Daybell starts next week. Today's already Wednesday, so we've got tomorrow and Friday, and then Chad Daybell, the jury selection starts next week, and we've still got to do some crash course recap stuff for that one. So what we'll do is maybe start kind of looking ahead to that one. We will try to cover some of the all the craziness going on, like some of the current event stuff or whatever, instead of getting too involved in a new trial or trying to keep up with this one. If this one has like a whole nother month left, that's not going to be easy to, or it's just not possible. So what we will do is I have to kind of switch gears just a little bit. Somebody sent me the one from yesterday, the fugitive wife murder trial or something. Hold on, let me see. I don't remember. But I haven't looked at it, so it's not that I'm ignoring you. Let me pull up the link you sent me. Emily, I don't think any of us knew it was going to be that long. You know, and there are, like, it kind of started out like with some momentum, and then it just started dragging. You know, I think that that's something that attorneys really need to consider. Because when they make things in a way that's so tedious, you know, jurors are going to tune that out. Like, if, you know, if it starts being too much. All right. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to stop doing the live streams on it. I can only do so much. I can only fit so much into my days, and I can only do what I can do, and I'm already working, you know, 17 to, well, anywhere from 15 to 17 hours a day, and I can't, I can only do what I can do. All right, so let's see. The jury selection for Chad starts Monday. So What we can probably do is on Monday, since we know that they're not going to seat the jury first thing in the morning and go ahead and get started, what we can do is do our like crash course kind of stuff. I'll dust off all the Valo charts and all that stuff. We can look at the timeline, some of the evidence against him. Keep in mind there will be more evidence that we haven't heard yet, and we'll kind of look at all of that. For anybody who wasn't here in the beginning, the Valo trial, of course, was the very first one that I live streamed, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I've put so much work into all of those charts and everything. So what we'll do is, that makes sense, right? So maybe Monday morning, we'll start there. Maybe shoot for 10-ish, 10:30-ish my time. And we will do like a refresher course and just kind of go over all of that stuff while they're doing the jury selection. And then depending on when they seat the jury, then we can start with that stream. As for this week, we've got today, tomorrow, and Friday. So maybe Friday we can do a we'll put together or maybe Monday we'll do it, since that way we can get everything that was done this week. But either way, we'll get together some of the highlights of this and some different clips and stuff, and try to see what we can watch from this one. I just, with all of the stuff that I have coming up and all of the stuff that I have going on, and starting next week is going to be it's going to be so crazy. So crazy. So I have to find time to squeeze in everything. There are a lot of them, aren't there? It gets real busy out there. Yeah. I stay away from there. Out in front of mine, here, look, I'll show you in front of mine. In front of mine's not that bad. I mean, there are people, but it's not that bad. Here's my, these are our security cameras. So you can see out on our beach, there's people, but we're not nearly as people-y as they are. And this is me right here. So if I went to the window right now and waved to you, you'd see me. Yes, the beach shack. Oh, actually, it might be my lunch or supper. Okay, so a couple things while we're doing this. The one that was sent... Oh, the Beverly McCallum fugitive wife murder trial. So this is what it says about that one. Oh, she's accused of killing her husband more than 20 years ago. Beverly McCallum is accused of pushing Robert Carabello down the basement stairs of the couple's Michigan home, beating him with a hammer, and suffocating him back in 2002. She's charged with second-degree murder and mutilation of a body. Wow. Carabello's fate was a mystery for decades, as his charred remains were discovered in 2002 in a metal box in a blueberry patch in western Michigan. The body was not positively identified as belonging to Carabello until 2015. She wasn't arrested. She's 63 now. She wasn't arrested until February 13th when she was of 2020, when she was apprehended at a hotel on the outskirts of Rome. McCallum has been a hotel guest along with her teenage son. Italian hotels are required to register their guests using an online system that connects to a police database. That's smart. The database flagged an Interpol arrest warrant. The extradition process began there. McCallum was returned to the U.S. on July 11, 2022, when local authorities picked her up at the Grand Rapids, Michigan airport. U.S. authorities initially had been trying to extradite McCallum from Pakistan, where they thought she had been living. She arrived in Italy from Pakistan. Italian authorities said McCallum, who has Italian heritage, was attempting to arrange to live permanently in Italy. Following her return to the U.S. last year, McCallum was held on a $10 million bond. According to the Eaton County Sheriff's Office, McCallum is the third and final person to face charges in the case. They say that after she shoved 37-year-old Carabello down the steps, she then tried to recruit 2 individuals to help dispose of the body. Her daughter, Dean something, and a friend of Dean's by the name of Christopher. So Dean is serving a life sentence on a first-degree murder conviction, while Christopher, who pled guilty to second-degree murder, is serving 15 to a 40-year sentence. In a plea agreement, Christopher testified against Dean and McCallum, the defendant in this. He told authorities killing had been planned and that he participated in a test run. According to McMillan's testimony, McCallum pushed Carabello down the basement steps, beat him with a hammer, which became lodged in his skull. Oh my gosh. And then wrapped a plastic bag around his head while he was still breathing. Good Lord. Okay, the daughter was 21 at the time and admitted to helping her mother dispose of her stepfather's body. That's crazy. Okay, so the Day 1, prosecutor Doug Lloyd gives the state's opening and tells the jury that Robert Carabello was murdered by 3 people, his wife, the defendant, and 2 co-conspirators who helped bludgeon and suffocate him before dumping his body in the woods and setting him on fire. Defense attorney John Finley cautioned jurors to be wary of state's witnesses who would be asked to testify about events that were more than 2 decades old. The co-defendant Christopher McMillan gave chilling details about the plot driven by the defendant to murder Robert Carabello. McMillan described Beverly McMillan's role, which included pushing him down the stairs, using a hammer to crush his skull, and then pulling a bag over his head until he stopped breathing. McMillan said they then placed his body into the defendant's truck and drove it with the defendant's 2 minor daughters in tow to a blueberry field where they set him on fire. Whew. After dumping their shoes and changing the tires so they could not be traced to the prints and tracks they left in the field, McMillan and the defendant's daughter cleaned up the bloody mess in the basement where Carabello had been killed. McMillan testified that before they left the field, the defendant wanted a ring from her husband. When he and the defendant's daughter failed to remove the ring, the defendant took it upon herself to loosen it with her saliva and remove the finger from her husband's dead hand, or remove the ring from her husband's dead hand. Yeah. The defendant's daughter, Cicely Carabello, took the stand to testify about her memory of the night that her father disappeared. She was 9 years old. Oh gosh. And recalled being rousted out of bed for a van ride. She was awakened by an explosion. Kathy's going to start doing recaps on this one. If y'all don't follow Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, she's going to start doing recaps on this one starting tomorrow. She missed her father, and when she asked about him, her mother told her that he had returned to his old life of selling drugs in Canada. That is cold-hearted. When she reached out to her father's family in the Dominican Republic and heard that he had not been in touch with them, she confronted her mother. She said the defendant told her that she struck her husband with a crowbar and he bled profusely from his head. Her mother blamed her half-sister, Deneen, and her friends for Carabello's death. So that was all just day one. Day two was yesterday. Let's see, Gordon DeVries, the owner of a property located an hour and a half from the defendant's home, testifies that he discovered a body in a trunk in his blueberry field. The body is burned beyond recognition, and the trees and grass surrounding the trunk remain scorched more than 20 years later. Detective Robert Donker, who responded to the scene, found a rope around the victim's neck and a hammer in the debris, which was later linked to the bludgeoning death of the victim. Donker would spend the next 13 years trying to identify the victim. That is so sad. Spent the next 13 years trying to identify the victim, following up on countless tips and seeking the help of area dentists and I can't say that word, odontologists looking for a match to the victim's dental records. Leads dry up, case grows cold and becomes known as Jack in the Box murder. It is the title of a documentary produced in an effort to learn the victim's identity. That's interesting. The break in the case comes in April of 2015 when Deneen Ducharme, the defendant's daughter, contacts Donker and tells him the victim could be her stepfather, Robert, and points the finger at her mother. He then collaborates with Eaton County Detective James Maltby, and they travel to Houston, where they interview Deneen, her cousin Tanya, and Cicely Carabello. The interviews eventually help them uncover evidence in the basement of the home where the defendant, victim, and their family lived in Charlotte, Michigan. The interview with Cicely generates their most important lead in the investigation. Wow. So this is crazy. So this is Michigan versus Beverly McCallum fugitive wife murder trial. Wow. I don't know how long this one is going to last. This could be something that we watch some highlights on. There's no way I can cover the whole thing. I have to be realistic about what I'm capable of doing. Yeah, the youngest daughter was 9 at the time. And that was in 2002, so she'd be... What did I say it was? 2002? So, oh gosh, could you imagine? And then to have all that time not knowing what... Oh. That's awful. That's awful. This, I mean, she's like all over, but the charges are actually from Michigan. This is Michigan versus Beverly McCallum. So, Kathy from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo is going to start doing recaps. You know, she does her breakdowns of just the craziness, the funny. So she's going to start doing those tomorrow morning. So definitely follow that. Maybe tomorrow and Friday and maybe part of Monday, depending on how long jury selection takes. Maybe we can watch some of the highlights from this one. Yeah, the daughter that participated, it said that she was didn't it say that they were sentenced? She's the last of the... Yeah, the daughter, Deneen, is serving a life sentence, and her friend that helped pled guilty to second-degree murder and is testifying against them. Oh, thank you, Mermaid Mary B. Or Mermaid Mary B. I'm looking at this and this. Thank you, Mermaid Mary RN. Thank you. I will take a look. So I think that's what our plan is going to be. Maybe tomorrow and Friday. Friday morning, I'm recording with Mandy Matney and Liz Verrill for a podcast for Cup of Justice. So I'll be starting sometime after that. And then on tomorrow, on my friend's case, the trial as of now, which she tends to weasel her way out of things, but as of now, let me double check and see if she's gotten out of it again. It shows that she is scheduled to be on trial in September, which is a little bit... It's going to be a little bit interesting because so is Donna Adelson. Let's see. Let's see if it's changed any. This woman has been married. Which woman? The Beverly McCallum? Right now, the trial is set in Laurie Shaver, the one that my friend didn't know that she was roasted marshmallows over her friend's husband's dead body in the fire pit they buried him under. It's set for September 9th. Yeah, I've said Mermaid Mary B so many times, and then I don't read. I'm looking at other things, so then I don't read. I just say what I'm used to. I'll probably call you that again, to be honest. Oh, and Jessica for Justice has a new show tonight. What time? What time? I don't have a date for Kent yet. I wish I did. I sure wish I did. When, I don't know what it is. I see. She has a show. What time? I don't know what time. Whatever. What? Who knows what time? Y'all know I can barely keep up with my own schedules right now. Yeah, she was roasting marshmallows over the dead body and had no idea with their children. Crazy. Crazy. All right. Okay, she's getting the time right now. But yeah, definitely check out Jessica for Justice. So I will, I'm going to rest for just a little bit. I stayed up too late working on the podcast. I'm going to rest for just a little bit. And then when I wake up, I'm going to start getting some stuff together. So that'll be our plan. Tomorrow, I'll go through and find just some of the highlights of the Beverly McCullough, Lord help me. With the Beverly trial. And I will plan on, we'll start watching some of those clips tomorrow and Friday, and then we'll kind of keep an eye on the Timothy trial and do updates on that. That way we are not getting, I just got too much to do a whole one right now. With Chad starting next week. There we go. Okay. Wednesday, 6 Eastern. There you go. Bam. Thank you, Dinah Bro. That'll be our plan. And then, yeah, and I know that Friday is Good Friday, so anybody who wants to, come on. Anybody who can't, that's fine too. And then, of course, Sunday, because it's Easter, we're not going to do the mods only, meet the mods for the members only. We're going to take this week off. So, anywho, I'm going to go rest, and then when I wake up, I will start getting some stuff together for us to watch tomorrow. And if you have not listened to the podcast yet, please do. And if you can leave a review on Apple, even better. All right, sound good? I will see y'all tomorrow. We'll probably do about the same time tomorrow, about 10:30 Central-ish. Sound good? All right, y'all, I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow.
I gotta go. I can't stick around here forever.
Everybody was wonderful. Everybody behaved. Everybody's always so nice to me.
Just love your channel and
Good morning.
Goodbye, good people. Now, how the heck do I get out of here?